Are we feeling, lighter? Last week we were a little...
Maybe too loose, weren't we? Maybe
we were, but we were loose enough.
Loose enough.
Yeah.
No, this is a week where the screws get a little tighter, and these are fun games because, well, I'm sort of speaking from the player perspective here. Like, I really, really enjoyed going to that place. I talked about Buffalo a little earlier this year and how I love that place because it's a little different. Pittsburgh is still sort of the big steel structure that a lot of them are like, but the uniqueness of that place is that it shakes a little bit, and it's not something that, I know a lot of Patriots fans have made that trip before, but it's one that is a little different. It points at the river the way it is, has an open end, so it's a little bit breezy on one side. The family section where they put your, when you travel with your family or whatever as a player for these road games, they put you up in, I believe it's the end zone opposite the river, up on the top part. And one of the things that fans, that your parents will often complain about, I remember this for years, is that when the place starts shaking, the grandstand actually shakes. It actually moves. So when they get whipping with the towels and stuff, it's one of the tougher environments to play in, but that's a good thing. So I think that's the really important part to put into this, because I know a lot of people are a little leery or worried or whatever about Arrowhead potentially being a place to play. I think the best teams, the teams you want to be a part of, the guys you want on those Patriots teams that are going to go actually win something, they'd rather be there. Like, they love this environment. These are the kind of games that are really easy to get up for.
Well, it's interesting you say that because it was posted on Twitter saying the last time Tom Brady took the field at Heinz Field and he came in and the place starts booing, but he was like all about it. He was loving it. And I think Heinz Field, it's probably one of the coolest stadiums I've ever been to. And I haven't been to a ton, but Heinz Field's up there for me.
It's fun, and I'll just, again, I think you need weird people. You need crazy people, people like me, I guess. But you need a roster full of people that, and I think there's a certain personality in professional sports and even in collegiate sports that can wilt a little bit when the pressure is heavier. But then you got to fill the room up with really mentally tough people that actually I get more juiced when they're yelling and swearing at me. And it was, having teammates, again, different era, obviously, but the Willie McGinnis and the Vrabels and the Rodneys and Brewski and that whole crew, like, I actually liked it. It fed me that those are two double birds, okay, and then, then they're throwing the towels. And what happens? This is like a real tangible thing to that. When they're doing that and directed to you, say, okay, now you know where I'm going to take that energy? I'm going to direct it to that guy across me. I'm going to kick his ass.
Yeah.
And that's what you really need out there. Guys that don't hear that and then draw in, guys that hear that and go take it to the guy they put across me. It's the best thing ever.
All right, well, before we talk any more about the Steelers, we do have to backtrack a little bit. The Pats have been very good this season about, if they get a loss, they move forward, and they use that energy in a good way.
Sure.
Last week's loss was something that was unlike the rest of them. They're calling it the miracle in Miami. It honestly might have been the craziest thing to ever watch with this Patriots team. What do you think they're doing? Do you think they're taking that and bringing it forward in a positive way, or do you think that's kind of putting a little bit of pressure on them?
Courtney, I think the really important part here is is fractured, right? And the way this works in an NFL locker room is you're going to have groups that are furious that their good day of work wasn't rewarded. And in part, that's you listen to sort of Josh Gordon. I love Josh Gordon's comments because the offensive guys are going to experience that different than some of the other guys, right? The offensive guys know they had an over 30 game, left a couple touchdowns out there that could have easily made this a 40-point game, and they're just chomping at the bit to get back out there again, thinking we're going to go put 40 on Pittsburgh. Defensively, they're going to obviously experience it a different way themselves. They had a really bad day on run defense, and again, so they really had a hard time stopping a run, and that's been sort of an up and down theme for this year. Good sometimes, bad other times. It's really been at about a 50% clip. So this happens a lot of times on teams where one group had by and large a pretty good day, although the situation of the offense wasn't great. Didn't finish well in the red zone a couple times, and didn't, obviously had the timeout confusion, Brady not knowing the timeouts before half and then leaving points. But by and large, they're going to walk away and say, we could have had a 40-point day. Defensively, you're kind of licking your wounds. So, and then you're the one that's most related to the goofy play before that ends the game. So you're the one that has to bounce back. The team, the offense is going to hit the ground rolling. They couldn't wait to get back out again. Defensively, you literally have to go back and fix some things.
Yeah, well, reminder, I think a lot of people were very stressed out after that game. And we talked a lot about, T-shirt day, hat day.
T-shirt, yeah.
If the Pats win today, they will get a playoff berth.
Yeah.
If they win today, Miami Miami loses,
then it's hat and t-shirt.
Yeah. So. All right. So just making sure that everybody is on the same field, making sure everybody knows what's going on. Yeah. Now for today, Pittsburgh probably without James Conner, Ben Roethlisberger a little bit banged up. How do they go into this week prepping without these two? I mean, Roethlisberger will be out there, but lesser than usual.
So I thought this was one of the things where I had a perception. You know, I've seen what everyone else has seen out there that going into this week, I knew Pittsburgh had been down. They've lost 3 of 4. They haven't outrun the football for a month, and I was surprised to find out. I presumed when Conner goes down, this mild rushing output that they've had been sort of related to that. Wasn't. They'd had a couple real poor ground game performances with Conner still out there. Now he's gone. I presume they turned themselves to the Samuel kid, who, in all fairness, a week ago had a pretty productive day, but more as a pass catcher out of the backfield. Their other alternative is obviously old friend Stephen Ridley, and he'll be there and is a tough kid. If you're gonna, but he's not quite the guy you remember, where they're going to give him the ball 25 times. So I think it puts a little bit of a quandary before Pittsburgh, because they are very much going to be in possession of that film from a week ago with Miami. And I think this happens a lot in the NFL, where you can say, hey, we haven't run the football well for a month. But that team right there, if you don't test them on the ground, you're leaving an opportunity. So the Patriots know this going in. They were really bad a week ago, really bad in a couple facets, particularly of defensive line giving up too much push, where literally Manu was handing it and it was going right down behind either of the two guards, going right at the defensive tackles or right at the middle linebacker. So independent of whether or not Pittsburgh's been able to do that against other people, they'll try it against you because of the most recent film. So you kind of go in knowing, is it the Samuel kid? Maybe. I mean, maybe it'll be a big touch game to him. And I think obviously the Steelers are going to look at themselves as well and say, hey, we spent a lot of money on this offensive line. DeCastro's a stud on the inside at one of the guard spots. The tackles are paid guys. They've got money, and they've got really adept guys on the line. And they weren't paid that money to pass protect for 60 snaps. So I think they're going to been doing a little soul searching to figure out the team they want to be to get off the schneid that they're on. And the Patriots, they have to be honest and look in the mirror and say, what do we look like on film, and what are they likely to do to us?
All right, well, looking at it, tight ends have been performing pretty well against Pittsburgh's defense. Gronk historically performs very well against the Steelers. Leading in again this week, you expect that, more of the same?
Yeah, it's weird because I think if you go back again last season, that the big drive down the stretch for the Patriots there in Pittsburgh was Gronk being fed. I mean, it was an exciting stretch of plays, 3-4 times, whatever it was. The one catch he had off of his toes. I mean, that was some high level tight end plays you're going to see. Now, I think they could go back to having similar drives like that in this game. But it's different. A year ago, they were more willing to extend Gronk from the formation. Gronk would sometimes play a sort of quasi-wide receiver. Now, granted, he comes in and blocks more than other tight ends in the league, but that was the ISO Gronk on DB's game. Really more of a feel of a lot of last season. When he had his big breakout last week, it was true tight end. This is Gronk attached to the formation. What I mean by that is he's got his hand on the ground right next to the tackle next to him. He's in the box. He's true tight end that they're willing to target as much as they did down in Miami. So the ways that Pittsburgh failed to cover him a year ago, you wouldn't really be changing that and addressing that because Gronk's in a different place. It's still the same human, but the real benefit of having him be a high target guy as a true tight end is it forces the other team to cover him with linebackers. You're not going to bring a corner into the box because then you risk him being a part of the defensive run front. So they're going to, I guess your greater question is it a possibility of something like that again this year? Yes, but a different way. I know it's complicated, but the big thing here is the Pittsburgh Steelers linebackers are going to be forced to cover Gronk, and that's something you can't scheme your way out of unless you want to bring your safety down, and that's dangerous as well.
Okay, let's talk about another player. James White last week.
Yeah.
Nothing really. 4 carries, 2 catches. Do you think it was a mistake not having him targeted more? And do you think that they're going to look at that and say, okay, against the Steelers, we got to put him out?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so. Again, huge fan of James this year. I mean, there was a time, like a 2/3 of what's gotten us to today, that I would say he was a straight up All-Pro, well, close to All-Pro, but definitely a Pro Bowl type guy. But then he's had a couple mild weeks, 2-3 mild weeks here. And he's one of the best football players on this team offensively, other than the quarterback, obviously, other than Brady. So it's curious that he hasn't been. But this offense, I would put it this way. I don't think it's so much press the ball to James. I think it's either James or Rex. It doesn't really matter who. But isolating whomever it is you're going to put in the backfield on linebackers, pressing that matchup more, it's to your benefit. And again, we're Courtney, you and I are griping about something here in a game where they scored over 30, right? Yeah. So this is really more situationally. It's, okay, you were 3 of 6, I believe it was last week, punching it in the red zone. When you get down to the red zone, they're going to load on the receivers a little better. The safeties come closer because there's no deep part of the field anymore. That's when those matchups become more prevalent, the discrepancy in those matchups. So when you get in a low red, you've had trouble scoring in the low red, at least not the high clip as you want to be as a really good offense. That's when I think to find the guy. Angle routes, isolation routes, in and out of things. The stick stuff, moving back to the backs, Rex or James, I think that's an area to focus on this week. But again, if they compensate that way and take that away, never mind. But if it's there, it's a good matchup for the Pats.
Okay, this one, if you're a TB12 diehard, you're not going to like this stat. The Steelers lead the league in sacks. How do they keep Brady off of the turf? How do they keep him safe? How do they make sure that Tom Brady is not leaving this game banged up?
Fail-safe way to keep the quarterback from getting banged up is to have him hand the ball off, right? You're not getting sacked when on a run play, to put it mildly, put it obviously. So I think this is really one of the weeks. I take me back to 2 years ago, and I understand the coordinator has changed for the Steelers. They do a little bit differently, less of the zone blitz stuff. But defensively, I think Pittsburgh, just because of the mentality that they play with, the flying down safety from the second level, tackling a pretty big and physical front, that you want to try to run against them. You don't want to concede run and then put Brady back there for 45 plays. Granted, folks, you've been watching the pregame chat all season. I always say this, but it is always helpful to establish some run, and I think this is an even more important week for that. And you've been down to the stadium this week, Courtney. I think one of the big things, whenever Coach Belichick, he doesn't say a lot, but whenever unprompted he brings up a subject, that means it's been told to his guys. He doesn't say things to the media of his own volition. When he just brings it out there, he's doing it for a reason. He talked about how it's been a couple weeks in a row that they haven't been great running the football. And I thought 2 weeks ago they were okay. It wasn't like it was bad. Last week was subpar for them. They want to press that issue more. But when I hear him say that, and I know the history against these defenses down there, I think 2 years ago with LeGarrette Blount had the big blow-up game. It was a really sort of turning point for them. They pushed the running game in Pittsburgh. You know why you do that? Because it takes the spinning towel things out. It settles them. It doesn't allow them to have third and longs to make noise because they're third and twos or threes, or second and twos or threes. You get that through running game. And knowing that they failed a couple weeks in a row and it's something they like to do anyhow, I think it'll be an area of focus. Keep Tom upright by having like a 30 pass attempt kind of day and having some combination of backs getting the ball over 30 times.
Okay, well, those diehards didn't like that stat. These are some numbers that they probably will like. Brady, 11-2 lifetime versus the Steelers, 7-1 since 2006. Under Belichick, Patriots are 50-1 when they have a running back rush for 100 yards in the regular season. Pats clinch playoff berth with win, like I said. So those are things that you want to remember. Yes, they lead the league in sacks, but other than that, historically, things go pretty well for the Pats. Last week, we talked about it not going well against Miami. We saw what happened there. This is an opposite. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of historical stuff. There's a lot of reasons to believe the Patriots, just by virtue of the organization being comfortable, I guess, going down, are really comfortable there. But again, I always say that with a giant asterisk, a big one, because understand, there's you can say that with the helmet logo, you can say that with Bill, you can say that with Tom, you can say with half the room, but there's a lot of people in that room that have to make this thing happen today. Sony Michel's never done this before, right? Josh Gordon has, but he was always a Brown, right? So there's enough guys. Trent Brown, never been a part of this organization in that place. You can point to 6, 7, 8, 9 very, very important guys who've not done it with you there. So which is more important, the there or how the new guys performed there? Like the history of there isn't as important as to what they kind of are able to pull off. So you're going to have 7, 8 to 9 to 10 guys in the room that really have to step up big and play good in that environment, where the historical number really doesn't help you much. So I think the biggest thing, whenever you travel down there, you can't be mistake-ridden, right? It's a tough place. You don't want to get the place spinning. And you don't want to you don't want to handicap their offense 2 possessions, really more than 1 possession, 2+. You're starting to get that range where you've turned it over once or twice, and they're not turning it over at all. It's really a place where you want to go down and steal one. Get +1 on the turnover differential. You go minus in that particular place, it kind of takes you out of your script, and all of a sudden those historicals you're talking about go out the window. You stay ahead of the curve, and you do pretty well down there.
All right, steal one. I like how you did that.
Hey.
But we're here, but we do have friends that are in Pittsburgh. So let's toss it to Zach Cox and Doug Kyde, who are in the Steel City.
Thanks, guys. I think that one of the keys for this matchup for the Patriots is to match the intensity of the Steelers in this game, because this really is kind of a must-win game for the Steelers. Not quite as must-win for the Patriots, even though they have not clinched a postseason berth just yet. But another thing in this game is that it's kind of a prove-it game for the Patriots, because they had so many struggles last week against the Dolphins with consistency early in the game in their pass defense, late in the game, passing offense, throughout the game, running offense and run defense. So how do you think that they fix those issues, especially on the ground on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, I think the rushing defense is really kind of the biggest thing that I'm going to be looking for from the Patriots in this game. And it's a match the intensity type thing, like you just said. Personnel-wise, I'm interested to see if we see Danny Shelton back in the lineup today. I think we kind of have to, probably, because he sat out the last 2 games. Patriots have allowed 8.4 yards per carry, which is more than 2 yards per carry more than any other team in the NFL. They've had some of their worst run defense performances in franchise history in the last 2 weeks. Danny Shelton hasn't been great this season. He's actually been pretty disappointing since the Patriots brought him over from the Cleveland Browns. But when you're just getting gashed so much right up the middle, I think you just need to have him back in there, even if it's just for some depth behind Lawrence Guy and Malcolm Brown.
Yeah, on offense, I think that really it kind of starts with the offensive line, because all season, Sony Michel, the Patriots rookie running back, has basically been as good as his offensive line has allowed him to be. He's had a good rookie season, I'm not saying that, but I wouldn't say that he's created a lot of yards on his own. When he's got wide open holes in front of him, he is able to run through those, and then he shows some nice vision, but he's not out there generating a lot of yards on his own by making guys miss. He's certainly having some trouble in the short yardage game. So this has to be a game where the Patriots offensive line up front with Trent Brown, Joe Thuney, David Andrews, Shaq Mason, and Marcus Cannon really step things up and open holes. And it is kind of a tough defense to do that against, because the Steelers front 3, front 4, front 7, it's a pretty good unit up there.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier off the top that this isn't a must-win game for the Patriots. It's kind of close, though.
Right.
I mean, if the Patriots, with the Houston Texans winning yesterday over the New York Jets, Patriots lose today, they drop down to third, or they remain in third place in the AFC. That means they would not get a first-round bye. Obviously, still 2 more games left after this, but they really put themselves in a tough position if they lose today.
I think that the key over these last 3 games of the season, against the Steelers, against the Jets, against the Bills, is just to show the full potential of this team, because they've really shown glimmers of it throughout their entire team, throughout the season. They've had good games on the run game on offense. They've had good games in run defense. They've had good games on special teams, passing offense, passing defense. Over these last 3 games and then into the postseason, it's time to just put all those pieces together, because the Patriots are almost fully healthy. Landon Roberts was added to the injury report late, but this isn't a team with any excuses as far as injuries go. It's a healthy team. All the guys who were around earlier in the season when they were showing those glimmers are still around. So I think that they still have potential to put it all together. It's just about showing a little bit more consistency. So I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, great stuff from Zach and Doug. How about Doug's that looks like a cashmere jacket.
That's some camel.
Yeah, that's
and
nice.
I'm actually wearing camel today as well. I took it off, but for tonight's NESN stuff here on the television stuff, you'll see the same jacket. It's a camel day. It's a camel day. Tune in.
That was a good little teaser there. Okay, so now that we've heard their keys of the game, let's go to yours. Let's start with offense.
Yeah, so offensively, I think you really need to put pressure on the other side. You can't concede. You can't. Honestly, you're trying to do offensively what I think their offense is trying to do. Get balance. You need balance when you go down there. It's an old theme for me here, but here's the reason I think that you want to see the Sony Michel high touch. You want to see them establish the run game. You want to see Trent Brown beating on J.J. Watt's brother. You want to see the edges getting worked by your real big physical offensive lineman. The reason I think this is important is because you've got a lot of really big-time play-action guys. And that's Josh Gordon. That's Gronk. That's Cordarrelle Patterson, who had a huge breakout a week ago. Julian Edelman, stock blocking, blasting into a route. Your offense is full of people that are really good at doing the whole part of the game, which is blocking and selling it and coming open. So the last thing you want to do is put all those different dudes I mentioned in a situation where the guy across from him knows what he's doing every time. This is play action game. This is Brady putting it in the gut, pulling it out, and just ripping you apart. Don't take the part away that makes the gut part matter. matter most. I think it's a big week to be balanced because, man, you know how hard Josh Gordon is to cover if you don't know if he's running a route or stock blocking you. Same with Jules. Same with Chris Hogan. Chris Hogan absolutely torched these guys last time there. Why? Because the play action fake was real. So really big week for that offensively.
All right, and defensively, what do the Pats got to do?
Well, defensively, I'm advocating here without, this isn't meant to sort of throw any particular people under the bus, but I do think we are at the time of year where we've seen enough games. We've got a sense of who they are, who their best guys are. I love that they rotate people through, but they need to have a first squad, a group that when they got to have it, this is the group that can stop the run, and you can screw around with everything after that, after you've stopped the run. The two best inside linebackers on this Patriots team, in my view, are Dante Hightower and Kyle Van Noy. The two best outside linebackers on this team would be Dante Hightower and Kyle Van Noy. And so what's been the biggest issue for them right now is people running it right down the middle of the defense. They need to get, I'm curious to see, and we'll find this out in pregame inactives, if they're willing to take, oh my gosh, I brought his name, and I'm blanking on his name. Big defensive tackle, Shelton, Danny Shelton. So Danny Shelton, he was inactive last week, and when you're having run right at you issues, I put the 330 guy, the guy that doesn't get moved. He may not do other things as far as pass rush and stuff, but it's not a good week to have that gone if they're going to try to threaten you that way.
Danny talked on Wednesday, too, all about this.
And he's hot, and I don't blame him. You want to have a guy that wants to be in there, especially if that's the way you've been losing. I think that was an inactivation a week ago that hurt them. So Danny, but it's not like Danny's solves the problem. My issue, though, with mentioning the linebackers is when you're having issues right up the gut, it's one thing to put those other guys outside if you feel like you have great depth there. But if you don't have great depth there, you need to put your best players where teams are going at you. So I'd love to see Hightower and Van Noy in the middle. Those guys plugging up that area. And why are you now able to sort of move to that? Because your depth on the outside has actually improved. You don't need Hightower and Van Noy on the outside. John Simon has been doing a really nice job. He's been a nice addition. You can live with him on the outside all day long for a full game. If you need Flowers to stand up and play on the outside, he can. But when they go to situations where they're using Hightower and Van Noy outside, then you lose Claiborne. Claiborne doesn't get as many reps. Then Dietrich Wides plays a much more minimal role. I think those guys need to be more involved, and I think you solve that problem by putting your two best linebackers in any spot right in the middle where the problem is. I think if they find the right configurations here, they can shut down Pittsburgh. But I think if they get cute, it could potentially very easily look like it did a week ago in Miami.
Oof, when we don't want that.
You don't want that.
Well, it is time for the main attraction to the show, Chatham's Choice. We are getting very close to Christmas. You want to make sure that these people can give their kids, the Christmas presents that they want and deserve. And we pumped that up last week, Courtney.
Did. So what we did is you end up having to maybe take back a pair of socks or two because we lost one. So we went from 10-2 to 10-3. So if you've been following us, just understand, if you're not a big gambler, or those of you who do wager throughout the season, on a 10-3, if you're just, say, coming along for a hypothetical $100 bet throughout, we got you up $1,000, we netted back $3, then you lose $30 on Vig or Juice. So you're $670 ahead if you just rolled with us throughout the year. And we want to keep you going. And in saying that, with the line sitting right around 2 points of the Patriots, do I feel so confident in that too after what I saw a week ago? To send you out there and possibly take something out of your kids' stockings, I don't want to do that. So we're going to roll with points this week. I think the Patriots are going to win. The line, 2.5 now. It's been up and down the week. I want to move you away from that. Well, everyone out there is clearly cheering for the Pats to win. I believe they will win, but I don't want your money to rest on that. I want it to rest on points this week. I think this is a week where this number actually first started at it's 55.5.
Oh, God.
I think it's moved up since we went on the air. But so here's the issue. It was 52 when the week started. That thing has crept up and up and up. And why I'm still comfortable, not as comfortable, but
he is sweating right now.
But sending you over. I'm going over on those 55. Here's why. Look at the last, we do this often throughout the year. When we want to look back at how the team's been performing, we look back 4 games. Well, you can't find 4 games at Heinz. You have to go back much further than 4. The Heinz games this year have been absolute point explosions on both sides, both from the Steelers group and then from the whomever it is that's been visiting. The Carolina game was nuts. It was like a 70-point game. And they've been over 60 here several times in the last sort of month when they travel there. Do I see one of these two offenses hitting the 30 number? Yes. Clearly, we hope that's the Patriots. But I don't see either of them holding the other group into a mid-20s or lower. So you're going to end up with somebody around 30 and somebody in the mid to high 20s. That still puts you over the 55 safely. I think it'd be a much tougher bet to try to get under that number. One of these two offenses is going to push it across the line. They've been doing it all year.
All right. Do you need to blot are you, all right.
All right, I apologize. But remember, we're still netted out at 670. By chance we lose this one, we're not going to lose.
And we still have one more game before Christmas.
Positive energy.
Still one more game before Christmas, which we'll be at.
Oh, and you can still bet the week after because, returns and all
Exactly. But thanks so much for you guys for tuning in and sticking with us. Another game on the docket. I can't believe we're already this late into the season. You can? Oh, okay. Well, I can't. This has seemed to fly by, but you and I will both be there next week.
We will.
And you can follow along with Zach and Doug today at Zach Cox NESN, at Doug Kide. They are in Pittsburgh. They will be tweeting nonstop all throughout the game.
In Camel.
And in Camel, yes. Camel. And you can watch him tonight on NESN, also in Camel.
More Camel.
But thanks, guys, so much. Game time, 4:25 p.m. in Pittsburgh. Go Patriots. Hopefully we get a W tonight and maybe a Dolphin loss and T-shirt time.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.